Da, 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 da. What's my good chair? Welcome, everybody. Let's give YouTube a couple of minutes to get those notifications out. In the meantime, if you've never met me before, hi, I'm Cindy. I explore the inside and the outside. And oh my goodness, I have been spacing out in the inside today. It was a day I was just going to take care of myself, get caught up on the laundry and take in some lessons, have some conversations, complete some official stuff and get it all scooted off. And in those experiences, because there are experiences within the everyday, day to day, I had a real experience, right? Somebody was being sneakity with my door, that little keyhole where you look out to see who knocks on the door. Somebody had unscrewed the whole thing. It freaked me out, right? That's an invasion of my privacy, and it's one thing that I do get defensive over is when I have to worry about my possessions, or I have to worry about my environment. And the thing is, when I got off the elevator, I'm pretty certain that that person was the person who was getting on the elevator when I was getting off, with the hood and all head down. It bothered me. It bothered me all day, right? And, it took me some time in contemplation and just kind of thinking, what am I uh, kind of frivolous in, that you don't pay mind to. And, if you were to lose these things, would it bother you, right? Do you have safeguards in place if there's a fire? It was like when we grew up as kids. Hello, Tammy. When we grew up as kids, we always had like little fire routes, right? Little ways that we would know that if there was a problem in the house and the house was going up in flames, different routes for us to get out. But it also brought to my mind, as a kid, how possessive I was of my things, of my items, that whether or not I paid for them myself or they were a gift. Oh my goodness. Give me 1 second here. Come on in, Alex. It freaked me right out, especially when I was talking about my door. This is just my sister, you guys. She just popped in to say hello. And wow, I can't believe you're out on the road today. Wow, were you scared to drive?
Walmart.
Oh my goodness.
How come your apartment's so clean?
It's clean. I'm doing my live show, Alice. Somebody unscrewed my cap, my eye poker outer in the hallway. Sorry, you guys, give me 1 second. And when I came up from doing the laundry, like the guy was at the elevator who unscrewed it so he could see inside of my apartment.
No.
But I have that there, like they can't see, right?
Oh, yeah.
So it's covered.
Yeah.
But I caught him in the action the other day. A lady came and knocked on the door, right? The one around the corner. Her kid moved in for winter. I guess he's homeless or something, but he moved in with her.
Yeah.
And she knocked on my door and she goes, pretends, sorry, I think I got the wrong door. But she's scoping out my apartment. And I went, oh my goodness. So I'm just telling everybody here like how upset I was about the whole thing, right? It makes me really nervous.
You always have about the whole covered on that?
Yeah, I always have, but it can swing, so I can check out I could still I can swing it over and I can see who's at the door. But yeah, Alice,
you have to be so careful.
Yeah, but I was saying I was being a little bit possessive over my things, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so So yeah, you got to go, Alice. I'm doing my
People know
live,
that you guys
Alice.
sell stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Well, I just stopped to say hi. That's all.
Oh, hi, Alice.
Alright,
You're
hi.
feeling better?
Yeah.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Good. With the headaches too?
Well, yeah.
Oh,
Okay.
okay.
See you later.
Bye, Alice. Sorry you caught me at a bad time. It just unscrews.
Oh wow.
Yeah. Jeez.
Bye.
Bye. That freaked me.
Lock your door.
I will. That freaked me out, right? When she knocked on the door, especially in that experience that I have. And, I don't have a lot of people knocking on my door. I've usually kind of left to my own, and I'm comfortable with that. But when it gets messed with, right? You can see it kind of gets me all kind of jumpy in that. And yeah, so that was my day, and it kept me in my head, and I didn't even, right, go into more important things. I watched some documentaries, some excavations in South America and some of those Aztec temples and stuff. And I watched uh in China, the different emperors and their tombs, and how they built them into big mountains, and then actually, because they wanted to outbeat each other, they made their tombs out of mountains. They like dug tunnels into the mountains, and they made those their tombs, because it was just taking too much time and too much man force, and people were dying and stuff, and their, what do you call, their people, right? The people that they're supposed to care for and rule over, they were being destroyed by almost becoming slaves. It became a thing that everybody had to give a year of their life to help build the emperor's tomb, and then they started actually building into it. Was so interesting. I really, really do enjoy the documentaries, but yeah, my head was somewhere else, and it made me think, I don't have a lot of things that I would actually miss, but in paying attention to those priorities, like I was saying, if there was a fire in the house, where's your escape route? Do you know your escape route? Do you have a little survival bin that, if you had to leave the building right away because it's going up in flames, that you don't have time to go through stuff? You're saving your life. Your life is your priority, right? But you have to obviously have a coat and have things handy dandy so you can just grab them as you're running out the door, right? So it kind of made me think in that state, that we have to take care of ourselves, and there has to be some kind of preparedness. We just can't go la di da di da all through our lives and expect that, right? We're not going to have stumbles. We're not going to be tripping over things, and whether it's accidentally or with its intent, right? We do have to pay attention in that. And yeah, that was my sister Alice, and I'm sorry I scooted her away, but this is my live show, and she consistently interrupts me during my live shows, and I apologize for that. It's not my intent to come in and right away go into a frazzle, but like I said, I had an experience today, and it brought some of these things to mind. I know we're in a time of change. Change has been popping up in the conversations with myself and with others, and with the little things that come across my path. But the idea of change, right, is that we're able to move with it. You know what I mean? That we're able to go as smoothly as we can, and not be in that hairy scary, not to be in situations where we're not familiar. And sometimes it's in paying attention, right? Just paying attention, just being not hyper vigilant, right? But if we have those badges, if we have those tools, we've earned them and we should be using them, especially in times of change, because it makes that change a less difficult ride, right? Less bumpy, less waves, less hairy, scary, right? And I understand though, right? Change happens all the time, but there are times when we are just thrown into that mix. You know, when we hear about the tsunamis, or we hear about mudslides, or we hear about, countries being taken over, or just all kinds, could be like volcanoes, or people in our lives getting sick and passing away. Like, we move from day to day to day, going la di da, and not paying attention in any way to the what ifs, right? And it is important to pay attention. It's good to know your surroundings and be vigilant of things around us. That's just being wise and keeping safe. And you're 100% right there, Tammy. But sometimes we think we're right, that we don't have anything to worry about again, that everything is okay, that we've never had problems like that before. Why would they happen now? Well, it is change, right? And sometimes we don't know what that change is, but it reveals itself, right? That I don't know what you call those things, the little peeker outer that are in the doors, and somebody had unscrewed it on me, right? Trying to see inside of my apartment to see if there was anything, right? To scope out if there was anything of value. We live in that world, right? And I live in that neighborhood. Right? And I think for a lot of us, even the neighborhoods that are good and we feel safe and we feel comfortable. I was talking about that last week, that I've lived in this neighborhood for over 30 years now, and I've never had a problem. I could go walking up back lanes and stuff in the middle of the night and never had to worry. And if I bumped into a situation, well, I was on it and it was resolved immediately. But there was nothing ever really, really terrible, unless I tripped over myself, which happens quite often. But in those terrible experiences, I'm grateful, right? That they don't come into my life very often, but sometimes we do, right? Like Tammy's saying, we have to be reminded every once in a while because we get comfy. We were talking about that this past week too, about expanding and being flexible and being open. And that's got to be part of it too, right? To be aware of our surroundings, right? To not just la di da di da, everything is good and everything is always going to be good. Nobody is indispensable, right? It's just like me, right? It's a little example, but me breaking my finger a couple of weeks ago, that was unintentional. And it was really uncomfortable for a week or so because, I keep forgetting that it was broken and I go to pick something up heavy and I'm just like, right. And I could have dropped my $1,000 garden bonsai tree pot, or something that I absolutely love. But it is in the idea of paying attention, right? That's how we take care of ourselves. And sometimes that means just sitting back and being a spectator in what is rolling out in the world and making judgments for ourselves and maybe having a little bit of that preparedness, and like I said, knowing where the get out the windows are if there's a fire, the fire routes, or right in teaching these things to the kids, or having that bucket ready for if there's an emergency and you have to get out really fast, that you can just grab it and out the door you go, and at least you got a pair of snow pants and right a box of matches and a slingshot. Or maybe it's a first aid kit, right? With bandages and all kinds of things in that emergency that we never ever expect. But if we have these things ready, even if we think that there'll never be a need for it, I think it's a pretty good investment to put a little package together for band-aids and aspirins and little things that you might need. Now, I don't mean to put anybody in a state like I put myself in, but when I am by myself, that's what I do, right? That I have these experiences and then I go into them, right? And it's a good thing. I think it is a good thing because we all need to be reminded that none of us are indispensable, right? Whoever, whatever has a grand plan, and we're not always privy into what that plan is. And it's in our own experience and own responsibility to be paying attention to our surroundings, paying attention to the change that comes into our lives, and to be able to move with it. Right? We live in a time now where you can just look out there and you can see all the catalysts going on, right? You can see everything and everyone out there stirring the pot, right? And just being aware of that gives you an opportunity to move, right? And who knows how we're going to move. But if we're paying attention, maybe we'll get that little bit of tidbit, right? I get it. Sometimes you got to make a mess to clean a mess. And in making a mess, right, we need to have that heads up a little bit sometimes so that we can have those tools ready. We can have those insights that we're going to know the roots. We're going to have a little plan, if not a big plan. Like we're not building emperors' tombs and mountains or anything, right? But they had a grand plan in that. They had the grand plan of coming back, right? And the grand plan is they had these big castles, right? Mansions built into mountains, and they were buried in them, right? Because they believed that they needed these things for the afterlife. Now, I'm not doing anything like that, but again, it's in that preparedness. And I guess that's right. I didn't notice the comparison in that when I started the conversation, but right, that it does kind of fit, doesn't it? Because these are the documentaries that I was watching today, and maybe it contributed to me going into my head a little bit. Okay, unfortunately, I am on guard most of the times because I have been through many emergency situations with those that I have taken care of and helped, and caregiver and self. I have plenty of emergencies. And you know what? That is absolutely spectacular. And the gifts, right? You earn those, like when I was talking about, you earn those badges, you earn those gifts, right? If we lived in the same neighborhood, Tammy, you'd probably be somebody, right? In an emergency, I would knock on the door because I knew Tammy would save the day, right? That at the very least, she might have the answer or the escape route. I'm going to try a little bit harder, right? And that was a lesson for myself. And of course, in that preparedness, right, I will voice my concerns to the building manager, and because I have an idea where these characters are coming from, that I will kind of not instigate anything, but I will let them know, right, in a curious way that right, something's going on, and I'm paying attention, right? And I'm gonna let everybody else know too, right? That's called we call that community crime stoppers, right? So we'll maybe just do something in that. And it has been pretty bad in this building. We've had our vending machines, the pop machine and the potato chip machine, whatever. I never use it, but the confectionery machine, vending machines get broken into. Terrible things, right? And the washers and dryers, they're going all the time. But, people use them as little businesses for the homeless people, right? So somebody will drop off a garbage bag full of dirty clothes and say, here's $5, do my laundry, because we have free laundry facilities in the building. And so there's no washers or dryers for anybody. And also, hygienically, I don't know, right? You don't want to bring diseases and bugs and stuff into the building, and it's not like I'm being cold in that, right? But it's looking out for my neighbors, right? Looking out for the people who watch out over me, right? Very surprised nobody noticed. Like I noticed, I'm so high, like you, Tammy, right? I notice these things. It's out of place. Somebody walks into my apartment, I can smell them. I can hear them even before they open up the door. Like my sister, I am on it, right? And when I came up with my laundry and I saw that my keyhole, that's what it was. Keyhole? No, not keyhole. Eye hole. I don't know, you guys. Do you know what I'm talking about? Tammy, do you have the name for that thing? Maybe I don't know what it is. It's a little hole they put in the door and you can kind of peek out to see who's at the door. And that's what they played with. They unscrewed it. It was totally unscrewed. And that's why I kind of knew that I had bumped into him when I came off the elevator, that he was going on the elevator, because his head was all down. He had his hoodie all over down his face, and he wasn't wearing any winter gear or anything. So he was obviously from the building, because it's a cold day. It was storming pretty good out there this evening. And it kind of calmed my system down a little bit, in that I know we're in the season where a lot of stuff is being burnt out, right? And it's part of, right? It's part of that change. It's part of that moving forward. And I'm just optimistic that, in that moving forward, it's moving towards something good. But like I said, sometimes you gotta make a mess to clean a mess, right? And that's true. And it just puts me back to when I was a kid, and somebody would scream at me, go clean your room. And then I would just like make it an all day project. And I would just pull everything out of every drawer and every cupboard. And it would just be like a big mountain on the floor. And then I would just slowly go through everything. What's garbage and what could be given away? What don't I need anymore? Let's fold this up nice. Let's rewash this. And right. And then you feel so good afterwards, right? You feel so good because everything is clean and organized, right? And it makes you feel good, right? It makes you feel good about things. But in the moment, it's not comfortable. It's not fun. It's work. And sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's just paying attention, right? Sometimes it's just paying. I was gonna say I thought I had the name. I had the name of that thing again. I think it's a eye keyhole. I don't know. It's the peeker outer hole. I never use it, but you can guaranteed I'm going to be using it going forward and just paying attention, right? And we'll see what comes of it, right? Maybe I've been watching too much news. I did come across what was going on in Mexico. I don't know if that's resolved itself in any way, but I was kind of came across my path and I just like, what's going on in Mexico, right? And there was some interview with a tourist who got stuck in a hotel in Mexico, and I just like, oh my goodness, this is change. This is the kind of stuff, right? When I say sometimes you gotta make a mess and it's a total mess, but when it's all resolved, how much better are we going to feel? How much more safer are we going to feel? And that change is going to lead us into a direction where we are going to pay a little bit closer attention, right? If not just for us, for our neighbors, for our wives, for our kids, right? And as a team, to be able to know who your friends are, right? And who you can rely on in those moments of hairy scary. Okay, you guys, enough of that. We're just going to get into a card. We're going to get into a card. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to bring that into my live today. But if it came out, it came out for a reason, right? Not to put anybody in a state, but sometimes it's in those calm moments when nothing is going on and somebody says, okay, time to pay attention, and you learn through somebody else's experience. Maybe you didn't know that those little keyhole things are just screwed in there. They drill a hole and they just screw one of those things in. And if somebody unscrews that, they can look right into your home, like right into your home. They might not be able to see the whole place, but they could see enough to say, oh, well, this might be a good place to go through, rummage through, right? And as much as we'd like to trust, as much as we'd like to think that there are not people out there, right? We all know that there is. And sometimes we just get so comfy. Sometimes because we don't have issues and trip ups and accidents or right heartbreaks or grief come into our life for a long time. Right? I'm so grateful, right? The last person that I'd known that had passed away was my mother, and that was like in 2011. That's been a long time, right? She passed away November 11th. No, it wasn't 11. It was the 2013, I think my mother passed away. Right, but that's still a very long time, and I'm grateful not to have to go through, sadnesses and grief and heartbreak and serious illnesses. And it's not to say that, there aren't health issues in my family. We all know my sister just had a triple heart bypass, and Alice was just here. She's been suffering headaches for a couple of months now, right? And then my other sister, well, she was in the hospital because she let a condition go for too long, and it made it so that her lungs filled up with fluids, and are just like, are you kidding me? Right? And there I am going, oh my goodness, using my example of breaking my finger. And I don't mean to laugh at that, but I gotta laugh at my myself that, one little thing happens and all of a sudden, right, I'm on high alert. And, right, nobody got into my apartment. I got steel doors. It'd be kind of difficult to get in here unless I left my door unlocked to go check the mail or something. But I never leave my place without locking locking my door at the very least. But we all know somebody wants something, right? They'll get it, but they're not going to put a lot of effort into something where there isn't anything to grab. And I don't, right? I'm eclectic, but nothing really I have is of high value, right? Like I don't have anything that's going to make anybody super rich except for my bonsai, my bonsai pot that might sit there for a year before it finds a new home. Okay, you guys, let's but yeah, that's true. But you've earned those badges, Tammy. You know, when we go through those experiences in life, for myself it was complex trauma. For you, it was living through the trauma of other people that make you hyper vigilant in that. And that for me it was in my own experiences that I was always kind of right looking out for the bad guys and looking for the trip ups and looking for somebody to call me a name or spitball or something. And lots of us, we grow up with those experiences. And we can attribute it, and we usually do, to something being fundamentally wrong with us. You hear that, right? That we think there's something fundamentally wrong with us. But no, sometimes, it is in somebody sees something in you, and they don't see it in themselves, and so they want to bring you down to that level. Sometimes, right? It's just nature. And it brings to mind. Here's a good example. Um in the jungles, right? They have monkeys, and sometimes those monkeys get together, and two different kinds of monkeys, right? They get together and they have offspring, and both of those groups of monkeys will reject the baby because it's two kinds, right? So they'll both go at it and try and kill the baby monkey. And so the only way for that monkey to survive is to go off and start its own species. And if it's lucky, right, that they can find a mate, and they can, right, that's evolution. That's what we did, the homo sapiens did with the neanderthals and the denisovans, right? And that's necessity, right? That is diversity. But it's not pleasant experience, the first ones that are born of two different kinds to be rejected like that. And it's nature, right? If you see someone that's different than you, then, right, we live in a world now that we're a lot more accepting of others. We're a lot more accepting of differences, but we're not quite there yet, are we? We're not quite there yet, right? That people are still doing that, and still doing this, or right, or worse. And it's to each one of us to do our very best to create the best life for ourselves as we possibly can, right? That we keep moving forward no matter what. We never give up. One of my subscribers today sent me a message, right? Because I sent her a Christmas card at Christmas, and she just got it today. I went, oh my goodness. And I really appreciated that she messaged me right away. We had a good little laugh about it, right? That she just got her Christmas card today, and I sent it like a month before Christmas, but somehow it just got stuck in the system anyway. And she just got the card today, but it took me out of that state of being a little bit attentive, a little bit in that, what can I do, right? Not just paying attention, but being prepared, right? To take care of myself. I am single, right? I am on my own. And even though I feel safe that I'm going through life, la di da di da di da, right? That doesn't mean that it's always going to be like that, right? Because things happen, don't they? Okay, you guys. Let's grab a card and we'll go into it for a few minutes. And then I'm going to have a shower and I'm going to get my pajamas and I'm going to maybe watch a documentary. Really keep it light today, right? I'll give myself my own little pep talks, my own little bit of inspiration. No motivation. It's the end of the evening now. We don't need any motivation. Okay, you guys, here we go. Oh, 2 cards. Tammy, you call it. Back or front? Back or front? I'll count to 3. 1, 2. I've got the front one. It's going to be the front one. Oh my goodness. That's what I did. I pulled the front one. The front one is genuineness. Genuineness is being comfortable enough to be yourself. Oh, I so appreciate this card tonight. I really do appreciate this card tonight because I think I was a little bit more comfortable with you guys than I would normally be. You guys know I love the positivity. You know, I'm a very positive person. I don't normally worry about these things, but it is in being not overly hyper vigilant, right? We're not putting bars on the door or anything, but being at the very least aware. And sometimes it's not in the matter of taking action. Sometimes it's just being a spectator, right? Sometimes a student. And sometimes in that conversation, and even though, right, I'm being genuine in the moment, right? My sister crashed the live show today, but in being genuine in the moment, that, I can feel comfortable in that. Whereas lots of people, right? This is social media. After all, this is a platform and I represent in that, but I like to represent the positive. But you know what? Sometimes in making a mess to clean a mess, sometimes, right? We have to be serious in what we bring to the table, right? What we bring to our relationships, what we bring to our own safety. And I am grateful that I have this platform, and I'm grateful that I have people that come and hang out with me that appreciate my genuineness. Even though I sometimes trip over myself, sometimes I show a little bit more than what my intent is, right? But it is what it is, right? If it came to the table, I'm going to work with that. Genuineness is being comfortable enough to be yourself. I was a little bit myself today. I hope somebody gets something out of that, at the very least. Maybe you'll pay attention and have that escape route ready, right? Might not, and I hope not have a need for it anytime, right? Not anytime soon, but anytime. But if it should happen, right? Wouldn't you be glad that in my genuine moment, in my little bit of hypervigilance, in little bit being in myself today, that, right, we talked about it a little bit. Okay, you guys, nice and sweet and short tonight. You guys have a great night. Thank you, Tammy, for coming in. I really appreciate it. And I appreciate your insight also. I love the caregivers. I really do. They're moving forward. Why are they moving forward? Because they know how to do it. Okay, you guys. That's my good cheer. And we'll see you tomorrow.